And there it is. That's the star of the show, Jupiter. Yep, we're going to talk a little bit about Jupiter. We're going to go over some of the main themes, the keywords. We're going to give some dates for when Jupiter enters Gemini. Gemini is an air sign, so we'll talk about that a little bit, of course. And then, not too long, maybe 10 days after Jupiter enters Gemini, it will trine Pluto. Pluto in air, Pluto in Aquarius is retrograding, right? It's heading backwards, which means it's powerful and we're feeling the all those intense emotions and stuff that has to do with Pluto and Aquarius. So first things first. And there it is, May 25th. Jupiter at 0 degrees in Gemini. Now, if you look closely at Gemini energy, there's freaking a lot in Gemini. So having Jupiter enter Gemini is just another thing. It's just another thing adding to all the Gemini keywords. So what you're doing is you're looking in your chart at your Gemini energy. So that's the sign of Gemini. And I'm going to go through this, and I don't mean for it to sound like sarcastic, but I've had people mention to me, gee, you're always saying find this in our chart, but you don't ever tell us how to find it in our chart. So I'm trying to do that. Okay. So you first off always start by looking for the sign. That symbol. That's the Gemini symbol. So you start there. And actually, I'm not even correct in that. You first have to have your chart. You have to have your birth chart, your natal chart. Okay. So once you have that in your hand, or you're looking at it on the screen, however you look at your data, you want to find Gemini energy. Okay. Find the Gemini sign. As an example, backing this chart up, every chart has all 12 signs in it. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way astrology chart looks, because you are every sign of the zodiac. Regardless of what anybody tells you, you're every sign of the zodiac. Once you find the Gemini energy, you look to see what house number it's in. And normally that's going to be this inner circle that you see. Okay. If you don't have your chart, or if you prefer to use a chart that kind of will match the house system and match the design and the color scheme that I use while I'm doing my videos, so that you can like hold your chart in your hand or look at your chart while you're watching my videos, just comment below the video and let me know that, and I'll take care of you. The first things first is, if I look for 0 degrees Gemini, I have to figure out, where is that in my chart? Well, I have to figure out, it looks like it starts in my 11th house. It looks like it is in my 11th house. Well, how do I know for sure? Well, you got to go by the degrees. Okay. Now, you always hear me saying the degrees matter. So you go to 0 degrees Gemini, and then you look for, where does your house cusp line of the house that you think that it's in. So this is an example chart. I think it's in the 11th house, but I'm confused because Taurus is right here. Look at this. Taurus energy in this chart, we've got Taurus at 2135 here. And that, if I look carefully at the black line that's drawn, it might be hard to see, but if you look carefully at that black line is the house cusp line of this 11th house, which means it begins the 11th house. That's where the 11th house starts. Where? Where this black line is drawn. And what is this black line representing? It's representing 21 degrees and 35 minutes of Taurus energy. You see? So anything that comes after that is going to be in the 11th house on this chart. So we now understand why they have that line drawn that way. They have that line drawn that way because there is so much rammed into this 11th house. So I'm going to draw these lines here real quick on this chart. All of this is the 11th house. You see, that's actually what it's showing you. It's showing you that that's all included. That's why they had those lines drawn. So this person's, if this was your chart or my chart, then that would mean that all the degrees higher than 2135 in Taurus are in this 11th house because the 11th house began at 2135. There's 30 degrees to a sign, 30 degrees to every sign. Okay. So Taurus is going to end at 29 degrees, and then the next degree is going to be Gemini. So there we go. We found our answer. Gemini at 0 degrees is in the 11th house of this chart. Yeah. Just an ass load, really an ass load, a pamper full of of Vulcan and the Sun and Venus. We have Sedna at 0 degrees and 22 minutes. Alcyone at 0 degrees 19. Jupiter now at 0 degrees. So understanding the Gemini keywords are huge. So what planet rules Gemini? And that's Mercury. Mercury rules Gemini energy. Think Mercury, you think Gemini, you think third house. Combine all those keywords because they're all going to mean the same damn thing. Yeah. Gemini, the third house, and Mercury. What are you thinking? Put some in the chat. Put some under the video that you're watching on YouTube, right? Social media, sharing information, learning. Gemini energy, Mercury energy, third house energy, learning, teaching, going to school, can be youngsters going to school like primary school, grade school, can be teachers, can be peers and coworkers and classmates. Yeah, Gemini energy. It's also the community that you live in, the local neighborhood, right? Your local community. We think of stock market because we think of I'm sorry, I'm hearing the board and trade board and trade I'm hearing business and manage, not just management necessarily, I'm sorry, but business and trade. That's business and trade. We think of the stock market with the business and trade. We think of the local communities and the merchants within that community. And we think of, hey, this is what I'm selling. So the barter and trade, right? Before we got all technical, and now we can just go online and purchase something and the shit's delivered right to the door. Can be same day sometimes. Absolutely. So that's all Gemini. Like Gemini has truly evolved from Paul Revere to the postmaster to people, just snail mail, now email. Like we get information and news, we share it. It's we send it out, we talk about it, whether it's on the phone or if I'm producing a YouTube video or we're pressing send and putting up a post on Facebook or wherever it is that you socialize and communicate and share knowledge for the sake of learning, but a lot of sharing. And this can be really gossipy energy. I usually don't say that with Mercury, but with so much in Gemini, there's the news, the word news is going to be so heightened. And we think of the political season, Jupiter in Gemini, political and politics, the drama, the show must go on. Why? Because Jupiter, the ancient ruler of Pisces energy. Because Jupiter, when it's talking and speaking and teaching, in Gemini energy, because it's Mercury that rules Gemini, Gemini can be tricky. It can be tricky. It wants to be able to think of salesmen, think of teachers, think of all the hoops that teachers jump through, and the things that they do to keep you engaged and interested, right? Sometimes they may go all out. I used to have a teacher who would be the greatest storyteller. She was so freaking good. I loved attending her religion class. I was brought up and went to a Catholic school. So we had religion class every single day. And she, one of the teachers anyway, I can't remember what grade I was in. God, was I in third grade? Anyway, I still remember the way she would tell the stories of the Old Testament. My God, she had such passion, such flair and dramatics in her voice and the intonations of the sounds of her voice. She could keep you awake. She could keep you interested. Holy shit. She had me on the edge of my seat, I think. So Jupiter in Gemini, keeping you interested and engaged, but that's not all. Because Gemini energy has been monetized. So now it's clicks. I need you to click on that damn video. I need you to click on my post. I need you to thumb me up because we're making money off of information, right? We're making money off of it now. So it's tricky. Soon as money got involved, it became a real trickster thing. And then we've got e-commerce, everyone's got their merch that they sell, right? Everyone's got a shop or whatever the hell. Like this is all this freaking Gemini stuff, right? So there's this underlying, I don't want to use the word motive, right? But people need to just logically look at it. It's business. It's Gemini. It's freaking business. Understand that someone's trying to make a buck. Okay. So when we do that, we can, I think, maybe it will help us to discern. So we're not maybe tricked so much, where we can back up a little bit and be a little bit more logical and be like, okay, what is this person's motive? What's your catch? What's your game? What are you selling? Type of thing, right? Because Jupiter is quite confident, quite confident. So Jupiter and Gemini's really good speaker, phenomenal, phenomenal talker, right? Phenomenal salespeople. The Gemini energy is your white collar workers. Think of white collar workers. Think of people who make it, and it's because they can talk. So we think of our politicians. We think of people who are literally, who are, gosh, some of them have zero ethics. Jupiter now in Gemini, and we think of the drama. We think of the politicians, but more importantly, it's our beliefs. So we think of the maneuvering and the options and the choices of changing my mind about something. Mercury wants the ability, it wants to have those options, and it wants the freedom. It's a Jupiter is a freedom loving sign, right? So Jupiter in Gemini says, I have the freedom to change my mind. I have the freedom to freedom of speech will be a big thing here with Jupiter and Gemini, freedom of speech for sure. The 0 degrees within itself is a surprise, is an upset, is shocking, because it's extreme energy. It's extreme. So think about it. It's extreme. We can't forget the housing market, because we think of our local community. We think of the merchants, and we think of sales, and we think of our local community. So it's not just the housing market, but businesses. So we think of real estate in general, real estate. So Jupiter being here, I got to wonder. Jupiter's job is to add to something. It inflates things. It inflates them, right? It inflates them. If you look over here, we got the Sun and Venus riding out together. But what about Sedna? I kind of didn't even talk about Sedna, did I? And Sedna's at 0 degrees, 22 minutes. So Jupiter and Sedna are conjunct. And Sedna is feminine energy. And I think of the librarians, but they're not the only ones. There is a lot. This is ancient history when we think of Sedna energy. But it is at its very root, it is about feminine energy being abused, being used, basically being just really treated horribly, horribly, subhuman treatment, left for dead. That's Sedna energy. Deep wounds, deep scars, deep emotional scars. And Sedna is angry. It's another feminine energy that's not going to back down, that's going to step up and be willing to verbalize. Verbalize why? Because it's in Gemini. And what else would librarians be other than Gemini energy? The books, the knowledge, the information, right? Where books are stored, learning, books, information, books, libraries, the foundation. The foundation. This is like before school. Remember? You ever remember when you had the little ones at home, and you had your grade school kids who had to do homework and had to do a project and had to look shit up, and so you took the 2 and the 3 and the 4-year-olds to the library, because you're 7 or you're 8 or you're 9 or you're 10 or 11, whatever the hell they needed to go to. I know this is going way back now, right? Do kids even go to libraries anymore? I don't even know, but it was a place where everybody could go and find a space within that place that they could hunker down and, with a book that they liked, because it had all those options. It had all that access, free access to knowledge, a library. Jupiter, conjunct Sedna, people who have lost their damn jobs because they refuse to ban books that have been sitting on shelves since forever. Yeah. Because the books either upset, somehow they conflicted with someone else's either religious belief or their philosophy on life in some way, shape, or form. That's all Jupiter shit. Your spiritual beliefs, your religious beliefs, your philosophy on life, whatever the hell that is unbelievably subjective and personal. Knowledge is objective. Mercury, Gemini, it's very objective. It's supposed to be objective. It's supposed to be, well, this is just what it is. Here's this information, right? If you don't want your child to read something, then maybe you should be at the library with them and you should be the parent and you should be the one saying, you know what? We're going to wait on that until you're a little bit older, right? Like that's what that's supposed to be for, as opposed to, putting librarians, right, out of work, closing libraries in some schools, closing libraries and turning them into like the detention center. So there's not a library in the school anymore. Like this shit is extreme, extreme. So I'm just trying to give examples of how some of this can look. And so some of the things we may be hearing more about in the news, other than the typical politics, because it's an election year. So, those commercials and the ads and just like all that, we can be sure. But because it's 0 degrees and SEDNA is here, extreme energy. Okay. And now Jupiter is also the judicial system. So we think of judges and we think of the Supreme Court. Okay. We think of the Supreme Court, Venus being here, the sun being here. There's an authority figure within Gemini energy, Venus, more feminine energy, the values of knowledge, the values of books, the money. But Venus is also the housing market again. And Mercury keeps track of data, Gemini. It's got the data. It's got the statistics. It's waiting for the report. It's writing the report. It's the writer. Mercury, Gemini, it is the writer. It is the reporter, right? The person who, back in the day, I can't even speak about anything current, but back in the day, yeah, there would just be these trusted people who were just solid, right? The ethics were there, and it was credible sources. They would never, ever say something unless they knew they had a credible source, right? And some of that absolutely has gone out the window with the invention of cash for clicks for cash type of thing, and making money off of saying anything because you can't get in trouble for it. And what is it my fault if someone's dumb enough to believe it, right? Like that's what it's come down to. So maybe there will be changes. Maybe there will be changes as this Jupiter energy in Gemini, right? Jupiter stays in Gemini for about a year of this, right? Not a year at 0 degrees, but a year. Okay. So expect your mind. Maybe there's a little bit more confidence, maybe a little bit more optimism because it's Jupiter. Maybe there's more ideas and thoughts about your future because it's very futuristic energy, Jupiter. The beliefs about my future, the beliefs about the freedoms, but the future is really key. Somehow we get ideas, right, and thoughts or planning and choices and options about our future. So we think of this real estate situation and the housing market and interest rates and inflation and just all of this stuff that we're together living through globally, truly. So Jupiter energy should, for some of you, especially for those of you who have Jupiter as your greater benefic, you need to know, right? And if you don't, comment to me and we can start that process to figure out if Jupiter is your greater benefic in your chart.